Hi there. You've arrived in a quiet corner of the world. Here we slow down and build things, just for peace. Every act of creation is also an act of reflection. The projects we complete leave quiet impressions in our homes, in our memories, in the calm places of the mind that are often forgotten. So, as you listen tonight, as you let your breathing slow and your thoughts wander gently, imagine yourself building something real. Picture the tools, the textures, the steps unfolding one by one. Let the sound of the story guide you through the rhythm of making. It's a story about remembering what creation feels like. Welcome to Building for Sleep, Part 1, The Clearing. The air is still and the world feels just a little slower here. You walk along a narrow path at the edge of a garden, the kind of path that looks like it's been waiting for someone to find it again. Grasses bend against your legs. Somewhere nearby, water drips from a leaf. It smells of damp earth, of pine, and of sunlight fading gently into green. You arrive at a small clearing. It's nothing grand, just an open patch where the trees give way to sky. Here, you decide, is where the garden house will stand. You can almost see it already. A quiet shelter, half hidden by vines, a place to rest and breathe. You take a slow breath in and exhale. Your shoulders relax. This is where building begins, not with plans or measurements, but with stillness. You set down your small bundle of tools beside a smooth rock. A hammer, a handsaw, a few nails, a simple level, a tape measure. Each piece feels cool and steady in your hand. Before you start, you look around the clearing. The ground is uneven, covered with fallen twigs, soft moss, and the remains of last year's leaves. When you step forward, the soil gives a little under your boots. You kneel and brush your hand across the ground. The texture is soft and rough at once, warm in patches where the sun still lingers. You pick up a small stone, round and gray, and set it aside. Then another. One by one, you clear the space, a small act of attention. Each handful of leaves, each pebble moved, opens a little more room for something new. There's no rush. You work in a rhythm that feels natural, gathering, pausing, breathing. Every sound seems amplified here. The distant hum of insects, the soft rustle of leaves, the faint creak of branches above. Time moves differently when you build slowly. It stretches and smooths itself out. Minutes become shapes of motion. The curve of your arm, the touch of your hand against wood and earth. When the ground is clear, you take a length of cord from your pocket. You imagine the size of your garden house. Not too big, just enough for a chair, a shelf, maybe a small table by the window. Something simple, something human-sized. You stretch the cord across the ground and mark each corner with a short wooden stake. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of the hammer feels almost musical. Quiet, rhythmic, precise. Tap, tap. You stand back and look at the rectangle forming on the ground. It looks small now, but you can already picture the space inside it. The walls, the roof, the calm light through the window. The garden seems to pause around you. A bird calls once, then goes silent. The sun slips lower, brushing everything with soft gold. You bring the first planks of wood forward. They're pale and smooth. Their edges cool beneath your fingers. You lay them carefully on the ground inside the marked space, checking that each one lies flat. A small layer of gravel beneath helps level the earth, crunching quietly under your touch. You use the level, its small bubble sliding slowly between the lines. Perfect balance. That's what you want. Not too exact, not mechanical. Just right enough that the structure will feel grounded and real. You kneel, drive a nail through the first joint. The sound is steady, like a slow heartbeat. Then another nail. Then another. Each strike feels less like force and more like rhythm. Building becomes breathing. Breathing becomes building. When the base is finished, you sit back for a moment. It looks like a frame of something waiting to come alive. The scent of fresh cut wood mingles with the smell of soil. The air feels cooler now, carrying the sound of evening insects waking up. You take a moment to imagine what it will feel like to step into this space one day. To stand barefoot on smooth wooden boards. To listen to the sound of rain tapping softly on the roof. That image stays with you as you lift the next piece of wood. You measure, mark, and saw. Slow, deliberate motions. The sawdust gathers in small golden curls around your knees. Each one glows in the fading light, tiny spirals of memory in the making. You fix the beams together, one by one. They form a small grid, a pattern both simple and strong. Inside that grid, you can already sense the future shape of rest. When you press your palm against the finished frame, it feels firm and steady. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to belong here, in this patch of earth, between trees and sky. You stand up and stretch. The air is changing, cooler now, carrying the smell of wood smoke from somewhere far away. The garden is full of soft sounds, a bee drifting home, leaves shifting in small gusts of air. Everything feels wrapped in a kind of gentle stillness. You take a slow walk around your new foundation. Each side catches the light differently, one glowing, one shadowed, one already blending with the dark. It's quiet work, this kind of building. It asks you to notice things, how the wood grain bends, how the ground slopes, how your own thoughts start to slow and settle. You think of the many hands that have built small shelters before you. Every cabin, every shed, every home, all beginning like this, with a quiet idea and a few pieces of wood. It's a humble kind of magic. Creation from patience. You sit on the edge of the frame and breathe deeply. The day feels complete, even though so much is still to come. That's how building works. You end the day with something half-finished and somehow entirely satisfying. You unpack a small thermos of tea from your bag. The cup warms your hands. Steam curls into the twilight, fading into the cool air. You listen. Somewhere an owl calls. Somewhere closer, a cricket begins to sing. You look again at the clearing. The place that was once tangled and uneven now holds something new, a beginning. The wooden frame glows faintly in the dim light, almost as if it remembers the hands that shaped it. You imagine the next steps: walls rising, a roof, a window letting in morning sun. But not yet. For now, the night is arriving gently, and everything feels exactly as it should. You take another slow breath. Let your eyes follow the lines of the wood, the curve of the horizon, the slow drifting of a cloud above. This is the rhythm of rest, the way creation softens into calm. You don't need to finish it all today. You've already built enough. As darkness deepens, you gather your tools and place them neatly beside the base. Each one catches a small glint of starlight. You whisper a quiet goodnight to the garden. Tomorrow you'll return. Tomorrow you'll raise the walls. You take one last look at the clearing before you go. It feels different now. Not empty, but full of quiet promise. You turn away slowly, following the same narrow path back through the grass, your footsteps gentle, your mind drifting somewhere between work and dream. The garden house is beginning, and in some way, so are you. Part 2. The walls. The morning arrives quietly. A faint silver light touches the trees. Dew glistens on the grass, tiny mirrors reflecting the first shapes of day. The air feels new again, cool and damp, carrying the distant scent of pine needles and soft soil. You walk along the path to the clearing, following the same steps as yesterday, though they feel different now. Familiar, like the start of a ritual. The clearing greets you in silence. Your wooden frame rests in the center, waiting, patient, and unchanged. You can still see the small dents where your hammer struck, the smudges of earth on the edges of the beams. You run your hand along the surface. Cool, smooth, slightly rough in places. It feels alive somehow. You place your tools beside it, breathe deeply, and begin again. You start with the east wall, the one that will catch the morning light. You measure, mark, and saw the first upright beams. The sound of sawing fills the air, slow and rhythmic, like waves brushing the shore. Each stroke pulls a thin stream of sawdust into the light, golden dust drifting in silence before settling at your feet. When the beam is ready, you lift it into place. It feels heavier than you expected. You steady it against the base frame, hold it upright, and breathe out. Then another beam, then the crosspiece that will join them. You fasten them together with careful taps of the hammer. Tap, tap, tap. The sound carries softly through the clearing. A sound older than language, older than memory. The sound of building something from nothing. You step back and look at the first wall standing there. Thin, almost fragile, but undeniably real. Sunlight spills through the open rectangle where a window will one day go. For a moment, it feels like looking at the outline of a dream taking form. As the day slowly warms, you fall into rhythm. Measure. Saw. Smooth the edges with your thumb. Hold. Hammer. Step back. The motions become almost meditative. Your thoughts start to drift, soft and wide. You think about how every wall you build, in wood or in life, begins the same way, with an idea, a shape, a bit of patience, and with trust that it will stand. You work quietly. The world hums around you. Bees in the clover, a breeze sighing through branches, the faraway call of a dove. It all feels part of the same slow pattern, repeating, unhurried. Between steps, you pause often, not to check your progress, but just to look, to let your eyes rest on what's already there. The frame of the wall catching sunlight, shadows slipping across the boards, the small imperfections that make it human. Those details are the difference between building and assembling, between creation and production. You smile softly at the thought. This little house isn't meant to impress anyone. It's meant to belong somewhere, to you, to the garden, to the slow rhythm of time that moves without needing to hurry. By midday, the first 2 walls are done. They stand like quiet sentinels, marking the edge of a space that's beginning to feel like a room. You can walk between them now, step inside what will one day be a house. The air inside feels different, even though there's no roof yet. Sound changes, softer, more contained. It's like stepping into a pocket of stillness. You take a sip of water and sit in the shade, watching how the light passes between the beams. It flickers and shifts as the wind moves the leaves above. You could almost fall asleep like this, listening to the quiet creaks of wood settling, the heartbeat of distant insects, the slow ticking of time. But after a while, you rise again. The west wall is waiting. You work more slowly now, not out of tiredness, but out of care. The last wall will hold the door, the small entrance you'll one day step through at dusk or dawn. You mark where it should go, draw the lines with pencil on wood. The act feels deliberate, ceremonial almost, like drawing the outline of a threshold between 2 worlds, the outer and the inner, the busy and the calm. You attach the final beams, their edges meeting neatly in the corners. Each nail connects one wall to another. Each joint strengthens the whole. By the time you finish, all 4 walls stand together, simple, square, and complete. You walk around it slowly. You can touch each corner now, feel the weight and warmth of the wood. It's a structure, yes, but also a boundary, a space that invites quietness inside it. The garden house is starting to have a presence, as if it's quietly breathing with you. You step through the empty doorway and stand inside. It's strange how a few pieces of wood can already change how the world feels. The air here is gentler, the light more filtered, the sounds slightly muted. It feels like stepping inside your own mind. Quieter, simpler, more aware. You trace your fingers along the wooden grain. The lines swirl like rivers, like wind patterns frozen in time. Some knots are smooth and round, others rough beneath your thumb. Each one tells a story of how the tree once stood, how it bent and grew. You can almost imagine the walls remembering their forest. The sound of rain through leaves, the chatter of birds, the soft press of sunlight. And now, here they are, reborn as part of something human. You close your eyes for a moment. Listen to the quiet hum of the day. It's not silence exactly, more like the soft breathing of everything alive. You open your eyes and begin again. It's time to strengthen the frame. You measure where each support beam will go. One low, one high, one across. You lift them carefully, one at a time, placing each against the wall. The hammer's rhythm returns, slow, gentle, constant. Tap, pause, tap. Each sound blends with the garden's natural music, the wind, the distant rustle of wings, the heartbeat you feel in your hands. When you stop, sweat runs lightly down your arms. You wipe it away, leaving a faint streak of sawdust. You breathe in deeply. It smells of resin, sun-warmed wood, and earth. You step back to look at your work. The beams cross like lines of poetry, simple, balanced, unforced. They remind you that structure doesn't need to be complicated to feel complete, just true. The sun is lower now, turning the clearing into gold. Every wall glows softly, as if lit from within. You lean your back against the wood and watch how the light spills through the gaps. It falls in patterns, long stripes and trembling shapes that drift with the wind. You take a slow breath. You could stay like this for hours, doing nothing but watching sunlight move across wood. You realize how rare it is to build with your hands in a world that moves so quickly. How making something tangible reconnects you to a slower pace, one heartbeat at a time, one nail at a time. It's not about progress, it's about presence. You let that thought settle like dust in the air, light, gentle, unhurried. Before the light fades completely, you start the last small tasks of the day. You smooth the corners with a bit of sandpaper, the gentle rasping sound soothing, repetitive. Each stroke softens the edges, turning the sharpness into something more natural. You run your fingers along the finished surface, warm, silky, faintly textured. It feels alive. You check each joint again, tighten a nail, adjust a line. The house feels solid now. Even the air inside seems calmer, quieter than before, as if it already understands its purpose. A small breeze drifts through the open doorway, stirring the sawdust on the ground. The golden particles dance for a moment in the dimming light before settling again. It's beautiful in its simplicity. Creation and stillness in the same breath. You sit down on the threshold, half inside, half out, your back against one of the walls. The garden is darker now. You can hear crickets starting to sing, their rhythm soft and endless. Somewhere far away, a woodpecker calls once, then stops. You sip the last of your tea, lukewarm and comforting. The cup feels good in your hands, a small, grounding weight. You look around and see how your work from the last 2 days has changed the clearing. Where there was once emptiness, now stands something with form and meaning. Something that feels both part of nature and apart from it. You think about how every wall, every beam is a choice to make, to stay, to believe in quiet purpose. The house will keep growing, a roof tomorrow, maybe a window the day after. But right now, it's enough just to be here, to exist alongside what you're making, to feel the balance between effort and peace. You close your eyes and let your mind wander. You imagine what it will be like when it's finished, sitting inside with the door open, watching rain fall across the garden. The smell of damp earth, the soft drum of droplets on the roof, the way light will bend through the window at sunrise. You don't need to rush toward that image. You can rest in the feeling of becoming, the quiet space between what is and what will be. The walls creak faintly in the evening air, settling into place. They sound almost content. You pack your tools neatly again. The hammer, the saw, the measuring tape, each one dusted clean, each one familiar. You place them on the same rock as yesterday, where moonlight is beginning to fall. Before you leave, you stand once more inside the unfinished house. The stars are just beginning to appear. Through the open beams, you can see them scattered across the sky, perfectly framed by the wooden lines. It's as if the house itself is looking up, its first night alive beneath the constellations. You rest your hand on the nearest beam. It's still warm from the day's sun. You whisper a small promise to return tomorrow, to finish the roof, to let this creation find its shape. The wind sighs through the trees in reply. As you walk away, you glance back once more. The structure glows faintly in the moonlight. Pale wood, soft shadows, an outline of serenity. It looks peaceful. It looks right. It looks like it's been there forever, even though it was born just today. You follow the path home, steps slow, mind quiet. Behind you, the walls stand tall, listening to the night. And within them, somewhere unseen, a small current of calm continues to build, like a heartbeat that doesn't fade when you stop listening. Part 3, the roof and the light. The morning begins softly. The sky is pale and smooth, brushed with a quiet silver that slowly turns to gold. The garden feels calm, still damp with dew, but already warm beneath the surface. You walk the familiar path again, your boots brushing against the tall grass, your hands carrying only what you need. The air smells of pine, sunlight, and yesterday's work. When you reach the clearing, you pause for a moment. The house stands there, open, quiet, steady. 4 walls of pale wood catching the morning light, their shadows long and gentle. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of sap and earth. You set down your tools. Today, you'll finish the roof, and by evening, the garden house will be whole. Before you begin, you stand inside and look up. Above you, the open sky, a pale ocean, vast and endless. You imagine the roof lines, how they'll slope, how rain will run down, how shade will fall in the afternoon. You can already see it in your mind. The house breathing with the seasons, the roof a calm shelter above your thoughts. You start by lifting the ridge beam, the spine of the house. It's heavier than you expect, but your hands know how to hold it steady. You raise it slowly, one end at a time, setting it onto the frame like placing a thought carefully into memory. The sound of the wood settling is soft, a low creak like a sigh. Then you add the rafters, one by one. Each connects sky to wall, each a quiet promise of protection. Tap, pause, tap. The sound echoes gently through the trees. The rhythm feels familiar now, like a heartbeat, slow and certain. As you work, sunlight flickers between the beams, tracing bright shapes across the floor. You watch them for a while before continuing. The world outside seems to move around you, clouds drifting, leaves shifting, time folding into each careful motion. When the main frame is done, you climb up carefully to fasten the upper boards. From here, you can see beyond the trees, the rolling green of the garden, the faint shimmer of distant fields. You pause to take it in. There's something humbling about being just high enough to touch the horizon with your eyes. You lay down the first board. The wood makes a soft thud as it meets the frame. You line it up, drive the nail through, and listen to the faint vibration through your hand. The second board overlaps the first, then the third. Soon the rhythm returns. Lift, place, nail, breathe. The smell of freshly cut wood fills the air, sharp and clean. Every so often, you stop to stretch, letting your gaze wander across the clearing. From above, the house looks smaller, but somehow also more complete. The structure that once seemed fragile now feels sure, grounded, full of quiet strength. Below, sunlight flickers on the floorboards like water. You smile softly. Even unfinished, the house already holds light the way a heart holds warmth, naturally without trying. You pause again and imagine rain falling on the roof, the gentle tapping that will one day echo through this space. Each drop finding its rhythm, each sound softening the edges of silence. You picture yourself sitting inside while it happens, safe, dry, at ease. Maybe there's a book open on your lap, maybe just a cup of tea, maybe nothing but the quiet satisfaction of having built something real. It's strange how imagining the future can make the present feel even calmer. You return to work, but your motions are slower now, more peaceful. Each nail feels like a note in a song that's been playing since the first day you began. You're not building anymore. You're completing. By early afternoon, the roof is sealed. You step down and look inside. The air feels different. Warmer. Quieter. Cocooned. You take a slow walk around, touching the walls, feeling the shift in sound. Your footsteps are softer here now, absorbed by the wood and the stillness. You decide to add the small window you planned, just one, on the east wall. You measure and mark the space, then cut the opening carefully. The saw moves gently through the wood, each stroke patient and even. When the last piece falls away, sunlight floods in. It's golden and alive, dust dancing in its path. You lean close to the frame, resting your hand on the sill. The view through the window is simple. Trees, leaves, light. But it feels like a world framed in peace. You can almost hear the breeze outside, gentle and round, whispering through the leaves. You fix the frame in place, sanding the edges smooth. It fits perfectly, as if it was always meant to be there. The rest of the afternoon passes in slow, satisfying work. You hang the small wooden door, light and simple, with a smooth latch that clicks softly when it closes. You sweep the floor free of sawdust, brush by brush, watching the golden curls drift away. You add a shelf near the window, just wide enough for a candle, a cup, or a book. Each task is small, but together they feel like ceremony. Every motion has purpose. Every sound has weight. Outside, the garden is changing again. The light has turned honey-colored. Shadows stretch long, the air filled with the faint hum of evening insects. You can hear bees returning home, wings low and heavy. You open the door and stand in the threshold. The world glows. You can feel the warmth of the sun against your face, the coolness of the wood behind you. For a moment, you don't move. You just breathe. When the light begins to fade, you bring a small chair inside. You set it near the window, where the last rays of sunlight touch the wall. You sit down slowly. The wood creaks faintly under your weight. You rest your hands on your knees and look around. The house is finished. You built it with quiet hands and patient hours. Every joint, every board, every nail is exactly where it should be. The air smells of pine and possibility. The walls glow faintly in the amber light. You can see tiny specks of dust drifting, catching the last gold of the day. You close your eyes. The space feels alive, not with noise, but with presence. You can feel the day's warmth stored in the wood, slowly releasing as the air cools. You built more than a structure. You built a feeling, a stillness, a reminder that creation is not about perfection, it's about belonging. Outside, dusk deepens into night. You take a small lantern from your bag, an old one, its glass slightly fogged, its metal cool to the touch. You strike a match. For a brief second, flame and smoke and warmth flare together. Then the light steadies. You place the lantern on the shelf near the window. Its glow is soft and golden. The walls seem to lean toward it, reflecting the warmth in quiet echoes. You sit again, watching the light move gently. Shadows sway across the floor, long and slow. Outside, the garden is quiet. You can hear the faint rustle of leaves, the rhythmic call of a night bird, the breath of wind moving through the grass. You take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Each exhale feels like settling deeper into peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need explanation, the kind that just is. You lean back and close your eyes. In the darkness behind your eyelids, the story of the past days unfolds again. The clearing, the foundation, the walls rising, the roof settling into place. Each step feels like a heartbeat, each moment a quiet note in the same melody. And here you are, at the end of it, surrounded by what your hands have made. You think of the word home, how it can mean a place, but also a feeling, a moment of arrival both outside and within. The lantern light flickers softly, its glow pulsing in rhythm with your breath. Outside, the night grows deeper, the stars brighter. Through the small window, You can see the sky, a dark ocean scattered with light. You feel small and infinite at once. At last, you stand. You touch the walls once more, a final gesture of gratitude. The wood feels warm under your hand, as if it remembers the work, the care, the quiet hours that shaped it. You step outside and look back. The garden house glows faintly, a small beacon of calm in the dark. The lantern's light spills softly through the window, brushing the grass with gold. The roof gleams with a faint sheen of moonlight. You smile. It looks exactly as it should. Not perfect, but peaceful, real, complete. You take a few steps back and sit on the ground, feeling the cool earth beneath you. The garden hums gently around you. Wind, crickets, leaves whispering like lullabies. You breathe it in, this harmony between what you've built and where it stands. In that moment, everything is simple. You, the house, the night. The boundaries between them blur, until it feels as though you've built not just a house, but a small piece of stillness inside yourself. You close your eyes. The sound of the wind becomes softer, like distant waves. Your breath slows. Your body grows heavy, calm, complete. And as sleep begins to find you, you can still see it in your mind. The house in the clearing, the lantern glowing, the quiet world breathing around it. A home made of wood, and patience, and peace. Part 4. The Years and the Light. Time passed softly, the way it does when you're not keeping count. The seasons folded over each other, one spring into another, one autumn fading gently into snow. And through it all, the garden house stood quietly at the edge of the clearing, the same way you left it on that first night. A little older, a little weathered. Still beautiful. Still home. Every morning, the light touched its roof first, before the grass, before the trees, before the rest of the world woke up. It gleamed like a memory, a warm reflection of the day being born. You came often, sometimes with family, sometimes alone, always with the same feeling that this small space had become something far greater than wood and nails. It had become a witness, a keeper of moments. In those first years, the house was still yours alone. You would visit in the quiet mornings, coffee in hand, dew still heavy on the grass. You'd sit by the window where the sun poured in and watch the world slowly wake. The walls smelled faintly of pine and smoke from the lantern. Dust motes drifted in the light like tiny constellations. You'd sit in silence, sometimes thinking, sometimes not thinking at all. It became a ritual. Those a few quiet minutes between sunrise and responsibility. Here, time wasn't something to manage. It was something to feel. You listened to the wood creak in the warmth, to the wind brushing against the roof, to the garden breathing. And somehow, in that stillness, you felt renewed, every single time. One summer afternoon, you brought your family. The air was heavy with the smell of ripe fruit and cut grass. The laughter of children followed you down the path. When they saw the house, they ran ahead, their small footsteps scattering across the clearing. Their voices filled the air, curious, delighted. "Is this ours?" one of them asked, eyes wide with wonder. You nodded, and for the first time, you saw the house not as something you built, but as something shared. A small, bright corner of the world that belonged to everyone you loved. They explored every inch, the tiny shelf, the soft floorboards, the window that framed the sky. They leaned out to look at the trees, then back at you, smiling. You watched them like someone watching sunlight play across water, aware that the beauty was fleeting but infinite in its way. That afternoon, you all sat outside on the grass, eating fruit from a basket, juice sticky on your hands. A breeze moved through the garden, and the leaves above cast trembling shadows across the wooden walls. Someone started humming softly. It might have been you. The house seemed to hum back, the wood resonating faintly with the warmth of life around it. There were rainy days, too. Cold, silver afternoons when clouds hung low and the air smelled of earth and leaves. You'd go to the house with your children, lantern in hand, boots leaving prints in the mud. Inside, the world felt small and safe. The roof, that roof you built with patient hands, kept the rain outside, where it whispered and drummed like a song. You'd light the lantern and watch its reflection flicker on the wet window pane. Sometimes you'd read stories aloud, your voice blending with the rhythm of the rain. Other times, you'd just listen. Your children would lie on the floor with their heads resting on your lap, eyes half closed. You could almost feel the house breathing with you, expanding slightly with warmth, contracting as the rain cooled the air. It became more than shelter. It was presence. It was calm. It was togetherness. Years later, when you'd pass the house alone, you could still hear that rain. The laughter, the soft thump of small hands against the walls, the sleepy whisper of, "Tell another." The walls had kept it all. Every sound still lived somewhere in the grain. Autumn was when the house looked its best. Leaves turned gold, then red, then brown, falling softly over the roof until it looked like it was wearing a crown of fire. The air was cool but kind. The world moved slower. You'd come to the house to work, to think, to write perhaps. The small table inside was just big enough for a notebook and a mug of tea. The window framed the trees perfectly, and in their colors you could read the quiet poetry of time passing. Your children grew taller. Their voices changed, but they still came sometimes, bringing drawings, friends, stories, laughter. They'd open the door and say, "It still smells the same." And you'd smile, because they were right. The scent of wood, light, and memory never really left. One evening, when the air was cold enough to see your breath, you brought a blanket and sat on the floor. The lantern light flickered against the walls. You realized how the wood had darkened over the years, deepening into warm shades of amber and brown. You could trace the small scratches and marks, every one a reminder of moments lived. The house was aging beautifully, the way all honest things do. You felt grateful then, for the act of building, for the passage of time, for how something made by hand could hold so much life. When the children were grown, the house became quiet again, but never empty. It was a place you could still come to when the world outside felt too fast. You'd sit by the window, older hands wrapped around the same cup, and watch the garden shift through the seasons. Sometimes your partner would join you. You'd bring a blanket and 2 mugs and sit close, saying little. Words weren't needed anymore. The silence between you was comfortable, filled with shared years, shared memories, and the soft hum of the wind. You'd notice how the vines had begun to climb the walls, wrapping themselves around the edges of the roof. Tiny flowers peeked through the wood. It looked like the house had become part of the garden again, exactly as it was meant to. And every time you saw it, you thought about that first day, standing in the clearing, hammer in hand, imagining what it might become. You couldn't have known it would grow this way, into a chapter of your life, into a memory for others, into something quietly eternal. Years later, your children brought their own children. You watched them follow the same path you once walked, their small shoes brushing against the grass. The same excitement, the same curiosity lit their faces. They ran ahead just as their parents once did, laughing, calling out to each other. When they reached the clearing, their voices lifted in wonder. The house had aged. The roof had silvered in places. The door creaked when it opened, but it still stood proud and warm. They ran inside, touching the walls, peeking through the window, sitting on the floor just as their parents had. You could see their reflections in the lantern glass, wide-eyed, smiling, full of life. You sat on the threshold, the same spot you used to sit all those years ago. Your partner beside you, hand resting gently on yours. The sound of laughter filled the air again, echoing against the trees, mixing with the song of the evening birds. For a long time, you said nothing. You just listened. Because sometimes joy doesn't need to be new to feel whole again. It just needs to return. As the years continued, you came less often. The house didn't mind. It waited. The vines grew thicker. The wood darkened more. Inside, the scent of pine had deepened into something earthy, almost like time itself. The garden had changed shape too, the trees taller, the air heavier with quiet. But every time you opened that door, it still felt the same. It still felt like stepping into peace. You realized then that what you'd built wasn't just a structure. It was a rhythm, a small echo of patience and care that lived on long after the hands that made it had rested. You smiled at the thought that one day someone else might find it. Maybe one of your children or their children. Maybe a stranger walking through the overgrown garden, drawn by the faint glimmer of wood beneath the vines. They'd open the door, smell the earth and the memory, and feel the same thing you once did. Belonging quiet. Home. You remember the last evening you spent there. It was late summer. The air was thick with the scent of hay and dusk. You came alone, though you didn't feel lonely. The house welcomed you the same way it always had, with stillness and the faint sound of wind brushing the roof. You lit the lantern once more, set it on the shelf by the window, and sat down in your chair. The light filled the space with a familiar warmth. Your hands rested on your lap. Your breath was slow. Outside, the garden hummed softly, just as it had on that very first night. You looked around, at the marks on the floor, the curve of the door, the soft way the light touched the wall. Everything you had built, everything you had lived, was here in this room. Simple, honest, complete. And as you sat there, you realized something. The act of building never truly ends. It changes shape. It becomes the life that unfolds inside what you've made. The house had built you too, piece by piece, moment by moment, into someone who knew how to listen to silence, how to rest in presence, how to see beauty in slow things. You smiled, and in that moment, you felt what you had been building all along: peace. Years may pass, seasons may turn, but the garden house still stands. The roof hums quietly under the weight of rain. The window glows with the morning sun. Birds perch on the railing, and ivy curls gently around the frame. Inside, the air smells of wood and memory. Sometimes, when the wind is right, it feels like the house still remembers you. The rhythm of your hammer, the sound of laughter, the hush of evening when the lantern was lit. It stands as all good creations do, quietly, patiently, alive with everything that ever happened inside it. A house built for peace. A house built for love. A house built for sleep.